All right. Jordan Harbinger, welcome to the show, man. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's fun to talk to you, even though, of course, we're virtual because we are not only miles apart, but also not allowed to go outside, which is, the state that we're in these days. So, yeah, but it's fun to be on the show.
Thank you very much, man. I know it's a long time coming to get this all set up, so I'm very excited to finally have you here. We are in a weird place, I will tell you that, where it's easier than ever to reach out to that celebrity, that business owner, that person that you want to, because we're all stuck at our desks at home, wherever that is in our PJs. But at the same time, it also causes issues like this, right? Where everything has to be virtual, what feels like forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm worried that, I guess I shouldn't say worried. I'm excited that there's going to be more virtual opportunities, but I'm also worried that people are going to start going, oh yeah, I'm not going to show up in person for this anymore. Let's just do it virtually. And we're going to lose a lot of the magic of doing media and everything else. Like, this is kind of, with sports, people are going to want to go back to the stadium. But with podcasting, I'm not convinced that people are going to be like, oh yeah, let me just go to a recording studio. They're going to be like, dude, I do everything on Zoom. And then we're just sort of stuck like, okay, I guess we're doing it on Zoom forever.
Yeah, it's a huge step back. But before we get into all that, you are considered kind of, I would say, the godfather of podcasting. You're one of the first, if not the very first person to start podcasting in a significant way. That's probably where people know you the most from, Art of Charm. Where else would people know you from?
Sure. So the Jordan Harbinger show obviously is my show that I've been doing for the past couple of years. I did previous programs that are now kind of defunct and that I left and transitioned out of. But like, man, where else would people know me from? I speak a lot at security conferences. Mostly, though, the training I do now is with like intelligence agencies, government, LinkedIn, Facebook, places like that. So I'm not, other than the show, which is extremely public facing, I don't do a lot of public training just because I tried doing that whole coaching thing and I was successful at it. But as you and I had talked pre-show, a lot of shysters have since come into the space and they're like, oh, I'm going to teach you this and that and the other thing. I was never teaching business or anything like that. But these guys, these sort of these fake gurus have sort of stepped into the space. And I was like, I saw this before and I went, oh, I hope that doesn't catch on. These guys are just fraudsters. And then it has been catching on. And I had transitioned a couple years prior to that. And I was like, I am so glad that I'm not like those guys, because that's what all these scammers say. Like, don't get scammed. Join my course about making money on passive income online. And I'm just like, no, thanks. So I do training and consulting for like Secret Service, CIA, Facebook, LinkedIn, things like that. But I don't try to sell B2C anymore just because it's too much of a pain. I do also just prefer to do my podcast and my interviews because it's fun and I don't have to shill for anything other than the occasional mattress, but I try all my sponsors' products out. That's different than going, come to my once-in-a-lifetime event. I don't do that crap. It's just such garbage.
So I couldn't agree with you more. We built this platform, this podcast, the website, exclusively without taking on any advertising dollars, selling anything, no courses, nada. It's a hard zero. And the reason is because, look, I grew up poor. When I was 20 years old, if one of those scamsters had come across my desk, I would have fell for it. I mean, first person to raise my hand and go, I was desperate, I was hungry, I was poor, I was a perfect mark for these people, and I would have fallen for it. So now what I do is I give away as much content as possible. I ask for absolutely nothing other than maybe share it would be nice. Maybe a rating now and then. That would be about the most that I ask for.
Who do I have to kill to get a freaking review around here? Yeah,
exactly.
I'm with you.
Because there are so many of these folks that, look, there's kind of two different groups. There's the flat out scams, right? And big shout out to Baller Busters and a few of the other folks out there that call people out on that. I love it.
Contrepreneur, Mike Winnett, Coffeezilla.
Yes, Coffeezilla, Willett. Yep, both those guys are awesome. So huge shout out to all those folks. If you don't follow them, go listen. They're amazing. And then there's this other group, which is they schlep positivity and motivation all the time, right? And all they do is like positive vibes, positive energy. And basically it's just a machine gun of tropes that make you feel good, right? It makes platitudes, right? It makes
Bumper
you feel
stickers.
good in the moment. Yeah, but what is it giving you? you actually haven't moved the needle at all.
Nothing.
You haven't built your business or fixed your relationship. Nothing. You've done nothing. And actually, studies have shown that you'll actually feel worse over time because you compare yourself to these platitudes and go, well, I don't wake up every day and kick ass and chew bubble gum, right? So it actually works against you over time. So a big part of what we do here is get into the weeds.
I was talking about this yesterday with, I guess it doesn't matter, but with somebody else sort of off camera, off air. And I said, it's not good for you. I was particularly proud of this. I'm going to pat myself on the back. But I said, it's not particularly good for you to sell a product you don't believe in. Like, I don't know if you've ever worked at like a cell phone store or something and you're like, get this, it's unlimited, but not really. And also, hey, it's $40 a month, but you can probably get it for 25 if you negotiate. It's not good for you to sell products you don't believe in. And for these guys that peddle all this bullcrap, that product is themselves, right? Yes. So that's really bad for you to consistently do something, scam other people, or be a part of a scam because you have low self-confidence. I'm actually going to do a whole piece and probably a whole show on what it means to be a victim of a scam, like what's going on in your head, what makes you a good scam victim, what scammers are looking for when they look for victims, because a lot of it is actually self-confidence or a lack of self-confidence.
Right.
Because people who lack confidence look for shortcuts because they don't believe they can do it the right way. They look for a lack of experience because people don't know that there is a right way to, like, for example, build a business. They think like, oh, well, this guy has a secret to building a business. Look how rich he is. He has a boat and a Lambo, whatever. Like so they're aiming at young people or people who are less educated, but also they're looking for vanity, which is a subset of insecurity. So if insecurity is a big circle, vanity is a little circle that's inside that Venn diagram with 100% overlap. They're looking for that. And they're preying upon all of these people, but it damages the psyche of the scammer. And look, I don't give a crap about the psyche of a scammer. Those people can go to prison. I don't give a crap. But the victim also suffers psychologically. And the problem that I find primarily is not just that these scammers are going after 18, 20-year-olds, taking their money, preying on people who are young and inexperienced or lack self-confidence. The other problem I have is that some of these quote-unquote advanced scammers, now especially these YouTube gurus and these other shysters, what they're doing is they're actually turning their client base, their victim base, I should say, because they don't have clients, they have victims only. They're not providing a real service. They turn their victim base into their marketing base as well. So they have, like, now it's not just let me scam you on this course. It's scam you on the course, scam you on the upsell. And when you get to the top of the ladder for 10 grand or whatever, that's when I say, hey, I'm going to authorize you to sell my course as an affiliate. And now you're going to not only make back all the money you spent on my bull crap, but you're going to be able to make other money off other people as well. And you go, well, I wouldn't normally do that. Like, if that was the first offer, everybody'd be like, hard pass, a-hole. You already got some of my money. But since it's like the third offer and you're in massive debt and now you need it to happen because you maxed out your credit cards, you go, well, I guess I could sort of sell this to some other people. I mean, whatever, I really need the money. So you start rationalizing it. And now suddenly you are an associate of this scammer because you're on the downline, to use a multi-level marketing term. Now you've got to recruit your own team of people, but you're just victimizing them. So it's insidious and it's toxic and it's contagious. And that's like probably one of the worst combinations of factors that you can find.
I can't believe... To me, the part that I can't believe is when you take a guy, and I'll just call it out, Grant Cardone, right?
Yeah.
Who openly got caught being bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
Like going through bankruptcy and selling off his jets and selling off all of his stuff and firing all his employees and not paying them, and breach of contract and all of these other issues, and yet still puts out content and still sells courses. And the fact that there are millions of people who follow this person and cheer this person on and defend him. And I'm like, man, the psychodynamic of that is amazing. That needs to be studied. How do you manufacture that? It
has been studied. I did an episode with Stephen Hassan, which you might have heard. And he was in this cult called the Moonies. Good. And the Moonies is kind of like this sort of 70s cult. It's like maybe even 60s. I don't know. It's like an OG cult. a cult
Yeah.
where there's an old Korean guy or whatever, or was an old Korean guy who like said he was the Messiah and blah, blah, blah. And they're in arms trading and they own a newspaper. I mean, it's like serious business in South Korea, not North Korea, obviously, South Korea and the United States and elsewhere around the world. This is exactly the same type of cult behavior. Grant Cardone, I don't know the full details behind this particular bankruptcy thing, but I think then didn't he say like, oh, I'm not really bankrupt. It was a joke. And like, it was just a hoax. Ha ha ha. You fell for it. I don't know what the follow up is for that. If people have since been like, it's not a joke, your jet's listed. I
Yes.
really don't know. I haven't looked into it. But what I will say is cult mindset comes into play here, because let's say that you bought a car from Tesla, and then the day after you bought the car, they went, hey, we're bankrupt. And you were like, what the hell? How am I going to get my car maintained? Wouldn't you then be really pissed if they said, just kidding, bro, it's a joke? You'd be like, it's not funny. Not only did you scare me, but why, if you're going to lie to me about going bankrupt, should I trust you about anything you told me about this car? And Grant Cardone's followers are just like, yeah, you idiots, it was a joke. You don't know anything about Uncle G. And it's like, hey, he just lied to you, and now you're defending him. You are a moron. You're a moron.
That's correct. That's correct. Not to mention that his investment quote unquote portfolio and his rate of returns have never been hit. His expenses are high. They're above average. Like, if you dig into what he actually offers from his little REIT program, and look, I'm a guy who used to work at Prudential for their investment side. I sold REITs to small companies like
Real
Merrill
estate
Lynch.
Investment Trust, for those of you who don't know what that is, right?
Thank you, Jordan. Sold it to Boeing, Google, CalPERS, Merrill Lynch, UBS. Those are my clients, right? And so I feel fairly knowledgeable about REITs. And so when you crack into his portfolio, what he offers and what he pays, it is, or I should say pays himself, his fees are just outlandish. And yet he is still able to continue on selling his snake oil. It's amazing. I'm a little bit jealous. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit jealous that you're able to do that, because I'm like, wow, how do you do that? That's amazing. I don't have any intention on scamming, but how do you get that many
I was going to say,
believe you?
Put the asterisk next to that and say, I'm a little bit jealous of your ability to lie through your absolute freaking teeth, your shady ass teeth, and then also somehow sleep at night while scamming innocent people that trust you. I'm not necessarily jealous, but I would say I'm impressed in that negative sense of the word.
Like morbidly impressed.
You have left an impression on me. Yeah, it's like seeing something like a really bad injury where you're like, wow, I'm impressed by how terrible that must hurt and feel and look, and how damaged your life is as a result, but I can't stop looking at it. It's that kind of impressed, not the whole like, wow, I want to be like this guy. I guarantee you that people who do this are extremely unhappy. Going back to the whole how it damages your psychology, I guarantee there's no chance that people who live like that are in a good place. And, to your point, with guys like Grant Cardone, I don't know him or whatever, but I've seen plenty of debunks and exposés of him, and even things that he has done in my where he did it. It's not from Mike Winnett or you or CoffeeZilla. It's something that he has said on a video, like a Scientology video. He started off with a lot of problems, drug addiction, all this stuff. He didn't ever treat it. He went to Scientology, which is anti-psychology, anti-medical, anti-treatment. So he just went there and went to a cult after starting off with a bunch of psychological injury and physical injury with drug addiction, and just never handled the problem. So I don't think for a second that he's a healthy, happy person. There's no evidence to believe that whatsoever. And if you ask guys like that, he goes and points at his jet like that's gonna, like, you're fooling me with that bull crap.
That's
Pointing at
exactly
your jet. I mean, holy crap! Why don't you put another Band-Aid over the bullet hole in your psychology, buddy? Your psyche.
Exactly right. So I am somewhat fascinated, maybe obsessed with specifically what you just hit on. How can you go to bed at night knowing that you've ripped off all of these people, that you've scammed all these people? Like, are you such a narcissist that you believe it? And so I'm so obsessed with it. I don't know if you can kind of see it on camera. I'll just real quick right there. That is a real trade confirmation from Madoff Securities used in his court trial. It is redacted, of course, but it was used in his court trial. So, the client's name is taken out. The client was one of my clients, actually.
Oh, shoot.
It was a client of Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch was my client, so kind of a separation factor there. But nonetheless, she knew that I was obsessed with Madoff and all the terrible, terrible things that he had done, because I just couldn't fathom being so dishonest and being such a terrible person and getting 8 hours of sleep at night.
I know, it's impossible.
All my hair would fall out. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to owe you $1. I would freak out. Like I'm such the opposite of that I'm sort of obsessed with people's behavior like that.
Yeah, I don't even, like, if I were late, I wouldn't even be like, oh, sorry, I had to go to the bathroom. If it was like I got lost track of time on a phone call, I don't even lie about that stuff. Because it makes me feel guilty and ashamed, because I was raised by parents who were like, we don't lie about things just to make yourself feel better. So to have somebody lie and say, you're going to make so much money off this, when I know as fact that I'm going to take all of your money and you're never going to make any. Some of it's narcissism, malignant narcissism, where they just don't care about your well-being at all. Right. It could be sociopathy brought on by trauma. And I look at a lot of these YouTube gurus and I say, this is a person, a lot of their stories, they'll be like, yeah, I grew up with 2 abusive parents and then I was abandoned and then I got into a drug addiction. And I'm like, you didn't grow up with a healthy emotional safety net around you. No. So there's a good chance that any latent psychopathy or like brain sort of formation. Again, I'm not a doctor. I have no clinical authority, but I've done episodes where people talk about how psychopath brains are slightly different, but not everybody who has a psychopath brain is a serial killer. Right. Those people were also abused and also had poor emotional safety net and also were victimized and also were bullied and or whatever. So sociopathy, often we see it come about as a result of trauma. So yeah, if you grew up in a crap environment and then you got into drugs and then you went to prison and then you came out and you kept doing drugs and then you went to, I don't know, a cult to fix your problems, you might come out with some serious brain damage that causes you to victimize other people. Think about this. In the case of certain people that might have had a drug addiction and then went into a cult, cults victimize you. Drug addiction is also you victimizing yourself. You're abusing yourself. Right. What part of that would teach you to respect others' boundaries? Certainly not going to be the cult that invades your life and takes all your money. Probably not going to be the drug addiction that invaded your life and took all of your money, or that you gave all of your money to. You are not going to set up healthy boundaries. Therefore, why would you respect other people's boundaries, whether they're financial, physical, or psychological? You would not.
It's a very, very good point. And I mean, and that's just it, right? So I found Bernie Madoff, we won't go down this rabbit hole, but what I found interesting about him was that he kept his sons and his family out of it, and had this sort of little fiefdom that he had created on a separate floor where all of them knew about the fraud, and the bigger business that was upstairs that made no money, by the way, it was all supported by the fraud, had no idea about the fraud. And it was so bad, his sons committed suicide. And I mean, it's an unbelievably tragic story, and terrible story. But what's crazy is, after his son committed suicide and his wife left him, and he's in jail, he's taken everything away. He's such a psychopath. He's such a narcissist that he holds court in jail, teaching other people his financial wizardry, right? How to be a white collar criminal. Get out of that blue collar criminal stuff. Stop mugging. Start stealing from white collar folks. You can do it at scale. It is unbelievable. You just go, wow. Your wiring, your brain is completely different than a quote unquote normal person. So,
yeah,
anyway.
He just wants attention and he just wants social status, and he just doesn't care how he's going to get it. He just doesn't care.
No. Yeah. It's sort of with reckless abandon. All right. So let's, given how short we are on time, let's get into your story a little bit deeper, because from a guy who went to law school, grounded out, studied like a maniac, had great grades, got into a great firm, did all that stuff, and then woke up one day and we're like, wow, being a lawyer sucks. I don't like this. I don't want any part of it. And you made this crazy transition to a career that, when you made that transition, didn't exist, like not even a little bit. What was your mental and emotional state going from one of the most stable, frankly, prestigious careers that you could go down, that you spent your whole life doing, to going, nah, boo, I'm out. I'm going to go do this other crazy thing that no one's ever done before? That's pretty intense, Jordan.
Yeah, I did grind it out, and I did study and pass the bar and got a job on Wall Street. Like, theoretically, too late. Well, too late. Not the usual time people decide, screw this, I'm going home. I should have picked like any one of the multiple opportunities before that to go home. But I didn't. So I'm stubborn. You know, it's funny because some of my stubbornness really has been great for success in business, because I've really, like with law, I persevered through law school where I kind of didn't belong. The bar study where I wasn't really getting it. The bar exam where I really didn't want to become a lawyer. Then I got a job on Wall Street and, you know, worked there. And I was like, this isn't for me. And it's like, how many signs do you need? But also when you're in business for yourself, you face one difficulty after another, and most people would give up and quit. And I was just like, oh, hell no. Right. So that same stubbornness that keeps me going in business, I really should have turned the cannon 45 degrees to the right years before and been like, oh, this is an option. So I'm always telling people, like, look, if you think you kind of want to start your own business, just go ahead and do it. It doesn't even have to be your full-time gig. I'm not saying you have to like leave your job. Just go ahead and start it. Because I was sort of like, oh, well, I'm not the kind of person that starts their own business, because I don't really know any business owners other than like restaurant owners. And I mean, it's not really for me. I know some people that own like corner stores. That's not really for me. It never really occurred to me, stupidly, it never really occurred to me that there are business owners that do stuff that they enjoy, and that they're not owning a restaurant or a convenience store. I guess, because, you know, when you're in school, when you're a kid, you go through kindergarten and it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Police, fire, nurse, teacher, doctor, or whatever your parents were. If your parents were other things, maybe you had that. So like maybe a kid was like, I want to be a lawyer. And it's like, what's that? Oh, my daddy and mommy are lawyers. Oh, okay. But otherwise you don't even know what jobs there are. But then you get to high school and you go, people are like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you go, well, crap, I don't want to be a fireman in the military, a doctor, or a lawyer. But I also don't really have an expanded smorgasbord of other available options. So the answer is, I'm not sure.
Yes.
And then you get to college and you're like, oh, maybe it would be cool to be in the foreign service or something. I don't know. I got an English exam. I'll be right back. You know, we do that. And then we graduate and we go, holy crap, I'm unprepared for everything. I don't even know what jobs there are, let alone like what my career is going to be. Nobody's counseled us on this. We chose a major. Cool, your major's anthropology. What are you going to do? Oh, I know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to make copies at a law firm. You know, so like there were no options. So I then decided, okay, I'm going to go and get more education, go to law school, become an attorney because lawyers get paid. And then I'll do that for 4 years as I explore my other options. And then maybe I'll be like a district attorney or like go work in-house counsel at a company. And eventually I just had to get off that train. There were a couple of things that reminded me that I needed to do that, or that really forced me to do that. One was during our summer associate job, which is like when you're sort of getting wined and dined as a lawyer on Wall Street. I noticed that one of the partners who was there, he was really young, but he was never in the office. And I thought, oh, he works from home. I'm going to figure out how to work from home because that's a more comfortable existence. And also I won't get fired as quickly because they won't know I don't belong here. I had some imposter syndrome. So I was like, if I work from home, it'll take them longer to find out I'm a knucklehead, and then they'll take longer to fire me. I'll make more money, but what? So I tried to get that cheat code, and it turned out that networking and relationship development was really what made him a partner at such a young age. And I was like, I got to figure that out. That's my new competitive advantage, my secret competitive advantage. And I'll put a pin in that and come back to that later. Because at first I thought you just had to outwork everyone, or be smarter than everyone, or both. Then you get to Wall Street and it's like, crap, everyone's smart, everyone's a hard worker. I don't have a competitive advantage. So when I found out about networking and relationships, I was like, ding, generating clients is going to be my ticket to the top, you know, the corner office, whatever. But the other thing that sort of scared me about the business of law that put the seed in it in the first place was I never really wanted to be there. A lot of other people always, quote unquote, always knew they wanted to be lawyers. That seemed like a mismatch. And then a lot of other people were like, ooh, one of my clients this year or whatever is Cartier. That's awesome. Yeah, we got to go into the office and they showed us some of the new stuff they're working on. And I was like, let me get this straight. The highlight of your year is that you have a jewelry company that's like, I don't know, suing someone over trademark or copyright or like God knows what else. And you got to go to New York or Paris or wherever probably Paris, and go into their office. And they had like a room with new stuff they were working on, and you got to take a 20-minute look at the new Cartier crap that you can later purchase what the hell?
At full price. Right.
Yeah, at full price. Like, or maybe they'll give you a discount, not that you need it because you're an attorney that makes, $800,000 a year, but who gives a crap? My reaction was, holy crap, am I that far removed from the action? That's like those people that are like, I love sports. So now I work for a rubber manufacturer that supplies the chief NBA basketball manufacturer, and once a year we get to get 50% off nosebleed seats to a preseason game. Who gives a crap?
Yes,
like
exactly.
I mean, you're better off being the towel boy, for a game. At least you're on the freaking court. So I just looked at lawyers. For me, and I'm not trying to insult the profession of law. There's a lot of noble lawyers that go after like these guru scammers and FTC attorneys and consumer protection. That stuff I could really get behind. But working in some corporate law firm, I mean, it was just like the nosebleed seats, rubber manufacturer. Yeah. You're a vendor. Like, It doesn't get less sexy than that. You are a vendor that people regret and resent having to pay pretty much every time. Nobody's like, oh, I can't wait to call. These guys are such a pleasure to work with. They're like, call the stupid lawyers that cost $500 an hour. Damn it. We got to deal with this stupid problem. Tell them to hurry up. And I was just like, I don't need to be in these deals. So the other magic ingredient that got me out of there was I started in 2006, 2007. 2008, we had full-blown economic meltdown on Wall Street, and I was in real estate finance law. So I was like, what's going on? I haven't gotten any work for months. They're like, this is going to be over by May. Then in May, they were like, we're letting go of everyone. And then in December, the whole firm the whole firm went under. And I was just like, oh my God, how do I get another job? But I'd already been doing my podcast for a while. Yep. I'd already been coaching and doing some training for a while. This is 2007, 2008, I guess. Yeah, I guess 2008. So I was like, I'm just going to give it a go. And a lot of my friends were doing the same thing. They were lawyers and they were like, oh my God, I got laid off. And what are we going to do? Half of them, 90% of them panicked. But the other 10% were like, I've always just wanted to try and do the music thing, or I've always just try to do the actor thing, or, I just wanted to I want to be a freaking chef. Like, I'm going to go to culinary. Screw it. I'm going to school. I can't get a job anyway. I might as well go continue my education. And I was like, then I might as well do my podcast and my radio show. I might as well just keep doing that. And I was on Sirius XM satellite radio. I was doing the show before that later became the Jordan Harbinger show. And I was like, this is so much more fun. Yeah, I'm making a lot less money, but I just don't care. I'm 28. I'm never going to have another opportunity to do things like this again.
Yes.
So that's what's happening. And I did that. And I here we are 14 years later. I'm like, wow, I mean, I'm making more than the partners at the law firm I left. I'll tell you that.
It's an amazing journey. Do you think you would have made that leap had 2008 not happened to you?
Yes, but I think it would have taken a lot longer. I think I would have stayed for a couple of years and then been like, okay, for real though, this sucks. But then I wouldn't have had the option necessarily, because if I got really bogged down in a bunch of deals, I wasn't going to go keep doing my podcast now that wasn't making any money. And there's I don't know if this is still the case, but junior level associates at a Wall Street firm, especially these we call them white shoe firms. They're like old and distinguished, dignified, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much they would have loved for me to be moonlighting as an advice talk radio show host. Like my firm, they didn't care because I had no work, and they were kind of an old boys firm. It was like a lot of Italian guys from Brooklyn, and they were like, hey, we heard your show there, tough guy. Hey, yeah, oh, you're going to tell me how to meet girls? Yeah, okay, buddy. I heard that in the hallway, and they were laughing, and they would call in and be like, prank calling the show. It was fun. But I don't think if I'd moved to like another white shoe firm, that they would have been like, oh yeah, cool, you have another job? That's not going to be a problem at all. They'd be like, no, if you want to work here, you can go ahead and quit your bull and keep going with, you want to be a lawyer, or do you want to be some sort of radio guy? Like grow up already. So that could have gotten squashed. And then also there's always the potential for golden handcuffs. I'd like to think it wouldn't have happened to me, but there's always the potential for the golden handcuffs where you don't really love what you're doing, but then you buy a nice house, a nice condo, and you go, ooh, okay, well, all right, now if I want to leave, I got to figure out how I'm going to pay this $4,000 a month mortgage, and then you buy a place in the Hamptons because you're getting richer, or your house, or you get a boat, or you get a marina spot, and now you've got like $20K in baseline BS expenses. Then you get married and have kids. Now you're barely scraping by with your $25,000 Manhattan lawyer payment. And you're just like, oh, I better keep getting those bonuses if I'm going to, and you're screwed. You couldn't leave if you wanted to. You've put the golden handcuffs on yourself. So my parents always taught me to live below my means. And luckily my business, the Jordan Harbinger Show business, was so slow taking off, 14 years now. I'm doing great now. So it didn't take the full 14 years, but let's say the first 10, it took so long to take off. I didn't really have time to go and expand my consumption and my lifestyle in lockstep with my income.
Right.
So now that my income goes up and up and up, I don't go, oh, well, I need more crap now. Like, I'm 40. I got a kid.
Yep.
I don't need a boat. I don't need all this other stuff. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I've been married for a while. So like it sucks though when you're 36, 37 and you're single because you've worked on Wall Street and you're like been married and you haven't barely dated. Yep. Yeah, you're spending $10,000 a week going out with your friends and being a show off. Because what else are you going to do? You have a bunch of money. You're single. You're trying to impress everybody. Like I know a lot of guys that go to Vegas and spend $20K and I'm like, you're an idiot. But they're like, dude, I'm 35. I'm single. Like, this is how I ball and have a blast. Yep. I got married and had kids before I had a chance to get that kind of cash together.
2 quick stories on the back of that. So one, dear buddy of mine got the coveted job on Wall Street of being a junior investment banker with Goldman. And that is like the holy grail of jobs. And he quit after 2.5 years, because he looked at the partners that were working, that had been there for 15, 20 years, that were still working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, who would have to cancel family vacations when a deal came up. And he goes, Pierre, you know what did it for me? These guys would make $8 million in a year, $10 million in a year, and they would spend $8 million in a year. They were broke. And so if we had a bad year in M&A, in mergers and acquisition, and they didn't get their bonus, they're in full panic mode. Oh my God, how am I going to pay? He's like, they're broke millionaires. And he goes, it blew my mind because we're Goldman Sachs. We went to Ivy League schools. We're supposed to be smart enough to save our money for a rainy day. Stuff your grandmother who didn't even go to finish high school would tell you. And yet these guys couldn't do it. So that's number one. Number two, this story happened directly to me. So I said I worked for Prudential back in the day, and Prudential had a very strong policy of no outside business activity at all. So much so that my boss used to drive the shuttle bus for elderly folk to get to church. Free dollars, $0. Okay. He made no money. He didn't disclose that quote unquote outside business activity, nearly got fired. Not kidding, because he didn't disclose literally shuttling elderly people to church for free, because that was a quote unquote outside business activity. So that's how crazy and intense Jordan's world is, where he came from, if you will. And so I will never forget this. We're in this big compliance meeting, which we had a certain amount of hours that we had to do compliance training every single year. And so there's 30 of us in a room. We're all kind of the senior VPs. The head of compliance comes in. He teaches us an hour-long class on social media, what we can say, what we can't say, how it all works, blah, blah, blah. Here's the company's policies. It's an hour that you just will never get back. It's the worst ever. He leaves the room. The president of the entire division is there. He reports to the president of Prudential. So top of the food chain. He shuts the door and goes, okay, now I can't tell you to not use social media at all, but if I catch you using social media, I will find a way to fire you.
Wow.
So I just want to set the precedent of, I don't think that you would have been able to go where you are now had you stayed there, because all these little things, the golden handcuffs, the disclosure agreements, the outside business activities, I just don't think, given the hyper regulatory world that we're in, that you would have been able to do that, man.
No, you're right. You're right. There's no way it would that some sort of blanket ban on social would have worked. We barely had Twitter and people didn't even know what it was back when I started. So to give you an idea, Facebook was only, I think, even at that time, for like University of Michigan, Harvard, Yale, and a few other schools. You couldn't just join Facebook. And that was it. So, and nobody cared about Facebook because it was like, there wasn't disinformation. People weren't embarrassing themselves on there with regularity. It was like you posted our thing was, hey, if you have any keg stand photos on Facebook or something, beware that a lot of our clients might add you on Facebook and they're going to go through your photos. And if it's you like doing a keg stand, like you're going to look bad. So remove those. And HR would go through ours and go, you're good. Hey, you might want to remove this. We weren't getting in trouble, but now it would be like, what's this on your Instagram? What's this thing you're advertising? What are you plugging? What are you doing? That would never work now.
Never work. Nope, never work. How did you drive people to your podcast in the early days? First off, I want to know how you do it now, because there's so much noise out there, but that's a different set of problems. When you first started, it was, what the hell's a podcast? So you've had two different issues, right? You went from the only guy in town and no one knows what the hell a podcast is to now every knucklehead has a podcast, and there's so much out there that now you're competing for noise.
Yeah, tell me about it. So in the beginning, the way that we drove people to the show was just it was pure word of mouth. But also, since there were only 1,000 shows in iTunes, people would browse around. This is back in the day when, I don't know if you remember this, but you used to be able to email a blogger, because there used to be a lot of bloggers, and you could go, hey, I noticed you're writing about gambling and poker tells. I do a podcast and we talk about body language sometimes. Would you put us in your link roll on the side of your website? And they would go, oh, yeah, cool. Could you mention our blog at some point on your show? And I'm like, yeah, deal. And I did that over and over and over and over and over again. And we generated sort of, I guess, a few thousand regular listeners as a result of all these blog readers. And then, guys on discussion forums who were talking about anything from dating to, I don't know, poker tells, whatever, to stick with that example. They'd be like, oh, I heard this interesting podcast about it here. I heard this. And you'd see it show up on Reddit, and things like that. So that was pretty much it, because there weren't a lot of podcasts. Back then it would be like podcasts. Oh yeah, I've heard of that. And then they'd be like, oh, I'll download iTunes right now and play that. And now you don't hear that. Now you don't hear that. But people used to have to download iTunes for Windows or Mac and then install that, and then they could play it on their computer. And if they had an iPod, they could download it and then sync it to their iPod and play it later. But that was it. So we used to tell people about that, and we used to post it wherever we kind of could. I don't even know if Reddit existed back then. I think it was Dig that it showed up on now that I think about it.
Right.
But it was stuff like that. And so we really and there were no good podcasting metrics. You put your show on a regular web server and you would see cryptic hits and visits and site counters. And you're like, so you really had no clue if 100 people or 1,000 people were listening or 10,000. You just had no idea. So I just checked my metrics every 3 months, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Looks like we had more than last time. Nice.
For whatever that means, right?
Yeah, whatever that means.
And so what would you say today, because you've had more than one show that you've been involved with. Jordan Harbinger, as we know it today, is now by far your opus. Now we are on the flip side, right? Way too many people do podcasts about every micro niche subject that's out there. A lot of people do podcasts who maybe shouldn't do podcasts. They just don't have the experience or the production acumen or whatever it might be. So now there's just crowded with noise, right? There's just so many people trying to grab for that kind of ear share, as it were. What do you think about that? Do you think the pendulum will swing back?
Good question. Not necessarily. I think that podcasting is having a moment right now where all these people think they can start one and do it, but we will see it will crest at some point. Remember blogs? Everyone had a blog and it was like, today I had a great cup of coffee and I loved it. And here's my oatmeal. We used to have that. Now a lot of that happens on social media, but even then, we had a lot of bloggers and they were like, oh, I'm going to make money blogging because I read Pro Blogger or Copy Blogger. Copy Blogger and Pro Blogger are still around, and Mark Manson has a nice big blog, and the Jordan Harbinger Show has a nice big blog, and whatever, but nobody's really writing a blog anymore. Or let me put a star next to that. Nobody's writing a blog anymore and thinking, I'm going to make it big now. All the people who want to be an influencer, they're not doing that anymore. They're doing Instagram. They're becoming an Instagrammer now. And then that's going to have its moment and then that's going to be over and people are going to switch to whatever else, just like YouTubers and things like that. Podcasting just happens to be in that trendy moment right now where a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I just read an article that said Jordan Harbinger makes 7 figures doing his show. I can speak English and plug in a USB microphone. I should be able to do that. I'm super interesting and I have tons of friends. Why don't I do that? I can't believe it. All I have to do is put it up there and people will find it. And it's like, whoa, okay, good. You can try that. But a lot of people are going to try that and then realize it's a ton of work to book guests, prep the guests, have the conversation, edit the show down, put it up, and then market it. That's a whole lot of people's jobs, and people aren't necessarily going to realize that. So it's just like anything else, in that once people realize how much work it is, they're not going to do it. Just like people who think Instagrammers are just like guys and gals who are like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to work out and then go stand on a beach and take a selfie. No. Have you ever seen Instagrammers taking selfies in like a pool in Vegas or anything like that? And it takes them like 45 minutes.
Yes.
It takes them like 45 minutes and they're going tick, 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 all over. And then they leave and you go, God, that girl took like 500 photos. They come back 20 minutes later in a different outfit and you go, oh, that was just a freaking outfit change.
Yeah.
I saw this girl, this is just one case, anecdotal thing, but I saw this girl in Vegas and she was a regular influencer that I later looked up because we started talking. She was out there for 2.5 hours. And then she's like, I've got to edit a bunch of these. I'm going to go make a video later. I have an Instagram live that I'm going to do for my fans. Then I go through my inbox. I mean, it's a job and it's not that fun, in my opinion. I'm sure she likes it, but in my opinion, it's miserable. I can't imagine taking a crap load of photos and trying to find, you're just a model that doesn't have a photographer. It's just horrible.
That's correct. Yeah. So last June, I was on a beach in Hawaii, and there were 2 girls there. That is this sort of iconic beach with this amazing background and whatever. It's like a well photographed spot. Long story short, these 2 girls sat there and took photos. I wish I was exaggerating, Jordan. 3+ hours.
Sure.
Without putting the device. Like that's all they did. I can't, maybe as a guy who hates pictures and doesn't do that, it just blows my mind that you could do that for more than 3 minutes without like killing yourself. To do it for 3 hours, it was unbelievable to me that that's a job. And then you realize, oh, it is a job, because that's 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, easily. Right?
Yeah, easily. And they don't make it that much money. It's the 0.1% makes a living wage and up, but it's not even like a 99% of people don't make money thing. It's far less than 1% of people make a living wage being an influencer. And even then, and if you're a model, what are you doing when you get older? What are you doing? Right. You know, and if you miss the wave of the next social media thing, like if you sleep on
TikTok would be the one.
I was trying to figure out what the new, if you sleep on TikTok, but then you're screwed. But what happens if you invested everything in like Snapchat? Oops, nobody uses that crap anymore. Oh, I lost you. You are gone. Oh no. What do I do right now? I'm not even sure. Maybe I'm the one who's gone. Well, this is awkward, isn't it?
It doesn't have. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I lost you the whole. I was talking and then you froze.
There, we're back. All right.
Okay.
Little internet instability, apparently.
So start over your thought, because I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, I happen to think that the influencer model is being eroded at a pretty rapid pace, and specifically, while the fame might not go away, the dollars that support the fame is being eroded month over month and year over year. And the reason for that is, as a business person, this guy who has spent money on influencers, and you quickly realize the ROI is not there, not even a tiny bit. And it does make more sense to actually advertise on a podcast or on TV, which typically are far more expensive, but the ROI is there. Well, then you offer these Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers less and less and less. And so I'm starting to see that. I know other business owners who did the same thing. They spent a bunch of money on social to get shout outs or whatever by influencers. The dollars didn't translate. And you've seen that a lot. Where you saw it first is the girls that, you and I were just speaking about, who are, all right, they're young, they're hot, whatever, that's their following, and they've got a bazillion followers, but those followers are there to look at them, They're not there to
Yeah.
listen to their thoughts on
No.
buying a product, right?
No.
Or fitness, or they're there just because they're hot. There's no other reason. So yeah, you might have 8 million followers, but if you promote a product,
Well, it depends on the influencer, of course. I don't want to
True,
say
of
any
course.
woman on Instagram, nobody's listening to you, they're just looking at your boobs. Like, that's not fair. But
Nope,
like, there are
true.
plenty of people who are looking at your. I see what you're trying to say. There are plenty of people on, let's say, Instagram that are like following fitness people, and I'm not going, ooh, I want to get that guy's thoughts on which podcast
Yes.
he listened to. I just want your ab workout, bro. You
Yes.
know, or I just want to know what you put in your hair because that's why I'm following you. To be an influencer that has more substance than that is a lot harder.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons I love podcasting is the show's an hour. If I'm faking it, it's going to be pretty obvious within the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And so that raises the bar for other people entering the space, because if you're like, "Oh, I'm so funny when I tell stories," can you tell funny stories for 30 minutes every single week, or do you just have 3 funny stories? If you just have 3 funny stories, you're a podcast guest. You are not a podcast host, you know?
Well said. Very well said. Okay, so let's get back into your story and let's build you kind of back out over this 14-year journey, right? So you had made kind of a little bit of luck, a little bit of help from the
FYI,
Great
I
Recession.
have to go in like 2.5 minutes, right?
Oh.
So we should probably wrap wherever possible. I think put a bow on it.
All right, let's do that then. So was your growth around your podcast sort of a linear line in terms of month over month you were experiencing 5 to 10% growth? And I
would say it's less than that, but yeah, it's like that over time. But then you have dips, like you'll be December and you're like, oh crap. And then you're like, oh, I'm good again. But oh no, now there's COVID-19. Okay, I'm slowly. So you build back up slowly, and then you take a hit and you go down, and then you don't necessarily start back up where you were. You build back up to that, and then you go higher. So it's slow. It's slow going. It's not. There's no like going viral with your podcast. There are big companies that can do it, where it's like, oh, it's me and Jerry Springer and Conan O'Brien and Jerry Seinfeld are going to do a show, and now it's everywhere, and we're doing media everywhere, and we get a huge bump, and blah, blah. Like, there's that. But if you're not them, if you're not starting from being already a celebrity, like if you're me and you're just like, I have a podcast, and everyone's like, who cares? You have a long, slow, uphill battle ahead of you, and that's what we're dealing with. But it's also good because it keeps a lot of new competition out of the market. Or I should say, it doesn't really keep them out of the market. It keeps them from getting anywhere near what I'm at, because they get beat down and they go, screw this. I'm just going to go be an Instagrammer, because at least I can see how many people follow me, and it takes less time, you know? And also you can fake it. You can fake it. You can fake being somebody you're not on social media, but you really can't do that with a podcast. I'm on the air for 3 hours a week. It would be less work to just become the person I want to portray than it would be to just figure out how to lie for 3 hours a week on air every single week for the rest of my life. It's just not even possible. It's just like literally, it would be like going on Instagram and being like, I need to look like I have a 6-pack even though I'm fat. Just build the 6-pack. Problem solved, right? It's easier that way.
That's exactly right. Jordan Harbinger, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show. Quick plug, where can people find out more? Obviously, the Jordan Harbinger Show on iTunes. Send them over to Instagram. Where else? Sure.
At Jordan Harbinger on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, people can add me on LinkedIn, email me, whatever. But the Jordan Harbinger Show is the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to shows. I'd love to hear from your listeners. So thanks for having me on, man. Sorry, we got to bounce, but I've got something up against it.
That's all right, man. We're all busy people. Appreciate you on the show. Till next time, everybody. Life's not a motivational poster. Jordan Harbinger, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Bye-bye.